What's going on? It's your boy DameSmiff, and this evening I'm gonna have a really quick conversation with you about what it's like being a professional musician and like the lifestyle that it comes with, right? And so we'll kind of deep dive a little bit into my personal experience, but more so about what I've learned from observing other professional musicians that are clearly doing a lot better than me, or maybe on the same level as me, or maybe just brand new novices and students and things like that. So if you're interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you subscribe. And when you hit the like button, it lets other people know this video is cool. And when you subscribe, you catch the latest video that I'm working on. So as I said, welcome to Late Night at Dames. And here we're essentially just going to have like a little talking head video and just have a conversation about the topic, which is life as a professional musician. So when people think of a professional, a lot of them tend to think about one thing, making money, right? And so when we think about making money, it's actually a lot easier than most people like to project it to be. So if you want to make money, let's say selling beats, like you can do that. You want to make money playing in a band, you can do that. You want to make money playing in an orchestra, you can do that. You can make money directing, you can make money writing music, you can just make flyers for bands and their shows coming up. You can do whatever you want. But what is the line that most people draw when they say the word professional? And in my personal experience, it comes down to the, I guess you can say, traditional or conventional expectations of a businessman. And so when we think of, let's say, a insurance broker, like there's a bit of a process that they have to go through. There's a standard they have to meet to be, I guess you can say, eligible to sell or broker insurance and things like that. But when it comes to things like the arts, it's not as objective. Like you can't just, cross a line and then suddenly you're considered a musician, because all in all, you think of like, I always use this example, the girl who's playing cello in the subway in New York City, busking, technically is a musician because she makes money and treats it as a job. Just like the person who plays in the orchestra in Germany, playing brass or whatever it could be. On different levels, they're both considered professional musicians. But how do the general public view most of these people? And that's kind of the line I want to be able to kind of show you guys that I visualize when I say the word professional musician. So a lot of times when I think of a professional musician, I'll give you an example of someone I met recently. I won't use names, but I'll just kind of use their persona to describe what I think of. This person had a business card, right? But this business card led me to basically the products and services that they offered, as well as gave me information on how to reach them, right? Now, that's really, really important to have as a professional musician, because how else could you provide the services if we can't find you, right? So that's one of the first things I look for. The next thing I look for is a bit of interaction when it comes to the industry or whatever it is you're like taking a part of. So this particular musician is actually an orchestral musician. So more so than writing or just performing or just playing the horn, I look for things like, okay, are you playing amongst other musicians? Are you networking amongst other musicians? And then the results you get from these things, are you investing it back into yourself, your brand, or maybe your passion? Maybe that's, this new recording you're working on, or maybe it's a new ensemble you're building or defining. Perhaps you want to start to educate and become a teacher yourself. But that's how personally I draw the line, that there's an actual business acumen going into the profession you've chosen. Now, when I don't consider people a professional is when it's really just more so just to pay the bills, right? Because as a musician, you can make money a lot of different ways. And I've said that earlier. But the issue that I see many musicians run into is that they struggle with what to do with the money and what to do with the opportunity. So let's say you get on stage of the once in a lifetime gig you've been dreaming of. It's the Grammys, it's the, I don't know, whatever you want to perform at, right? And you finally get the opportunity and you perform your song and they clap their hands and everybody loves you and you're beautiful and everything worked out. What's next? What are you supposed to do? And this is where I think most professional musicians kind of shine. They know exactly what to do long before the gig showed up. And your average, or I guess you can say hobbyist musician, is just happy to be there, and they don't really invest back into themselves from the opportunity. So this is where I was actually learning from another musician that I was working with. This was a saxophone player in the jazz ensemble that I was playing in, and they were building their portfolio or resume for themselves as a musician, and it seemed to work a I could say excellently for them, right? So they were pretty much marking down all, if not most, of the notable gigs and venues that they played at. And they made sure to either, take a photo for social media or maybe meet with somebody, make sure they know their name, shake their hands. And this musician was a saxophone player. So this wasn't like somebody who's trying to like run a record label or anything, but they were just building their resume, building their portfolio. And as a professional, that's super, super important because many of the things you're going to run into are questions when you're meeting people. Who are you? Where have you been? What have you done? What do you know? And when you keep track of these things, it's easier to just reference instead of trying to, convince everybody or sell yourself each and every time you have the conversation. It's easy just to point to a resume, point to a press kit, or point to your works and just say, this is what I've done. This is proof that I know what I'm doing and I understand what I'm doing. And so that was one of the very, very important things that I learned from this musician, and they've just grown and grown and grown and grown and just been doing so much better for themselves over time. And a lot of the things that they were targeting when it came to the type of gigs that they were looking for, the purpose of the gigs that they were looking for started to play into the resume they wanted to build. So it wasn't just I'm doing my friend's birthday party or I know somebody needs a wedding saxophone player. No, 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 no. These were like very particular choice milestones that this person was choosing to add onto their resume. So this is where we go into the next step, which is music career path, right? So when I think of a musician specifically, there's almost an infinite amount of opportunities you can think of in terms of what you want to, I guess you can say, craft as your lifestyle. You can be a stay-at-home musician who works online. You can be a traveling musician whose primary source of income is performances. You can be a writing musician that collaborates with other musicians. So that way you'll have a little bit of variety of maybe working online, working at home, or traveling a lot. Perhaps performing isn't your strong suit, but managing. Maybe you have an ear or a creative kind of bug where you can help navigate and consult other musicians and bands to get their ideas out. And that is super valuable for a lot of people who need that help, right? So, in order to understand that, you really do have to expose yourself to a lot of different opportunities and vulnerabilities as a musician. That means you're going to have to play in ensembles of songs and genres you've never heard of. You're going to have to talk the languages of people that you've never spoken with. You're going to have to pick up and put down tools and instruments to learn how they work and their purpose and what role they play in what you're trying to do and use. And so, that will actually provide you with more variety of choices and things that you can use to help direct your musical career path. So try not to fall into the rut of, oh, I just want to be a guitarist, or I just want to play at church, or I just am a rock band guy. You can be a rock band guy who teaches children at the same time, does his own albums, and writes for us students and schools and all that stuff. You can do it all, but it's really down to what you choose and the things that you desire for your music career path. And so this is pretty much the core of most musical careers, but on the flip side of it, there's a reality to it, and it's you got to keep the lights on. You got to be able to pay the bills. And so I want to kind of give you a little bit more information on another musician that I met, and this was more of a producer, and they gave me pretty much a lot of information on the different income sources you can come up with as a musician. And in this day and age of technology, you can actually pretty much invent your job. So what they had told me was that you can do, like I said earlier, flyers for other musicians. You can mix and master and audio engineer for bands and ensembles and singers. You can manage studios. You can simply just house the studio for other producers and engineers and bands to use. You can teach. You can also produce the flyers, the album artwork. You can also, what's the word I'm looking for? Become a roadie. In other words, be like an equipment manager, stage manager, or even a promoter for different bands and things like that. These are all opportunities that are kind of like great for people who are in music, understand music, and play instruments, because you will know a little bit more what these people need. You'll know how to help musicians. You'll know how to solve their problems. In some instances, You may be a consultant for, like, I don't know, a corporate business of technology, maybe a HVAC company, or maybe I don't know, a tow truck company. Yes, those skills could easily translate into the music industry, but there's a little bit of nuances that come with the industry itself that you might want to get some experience in to help you get an edge on the competition. And so a lot of that is really going to come down to networking. And this would be pretty much how I will close out this nice little seminar for you. But networking in the music industry is very, very easy, but also very, 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 very tedious. So just like every other industry, networking comes with its ups and downs, but you also want to be very aware of what you want from people and what you can give to people. So it's one thing to be a nice person. It's one thing to be a person with manners. It's another thing to be popular, but it's a totally different thing to be valuable. Okay, so there's a difference between people knowing your name and people needing your services. Okay, so as a musician, sometimes we kind of confuse the two because, we'll see somebody with a hit song and that's really, really cool and all that stuff. But as I started to get a little more experience in the music industry, I started to notice the songs and the records and the musicians that do really, really well. When you look a little deeper, there's some infrastructure into their success, and it usually comes from people. So if you pay attention to what people have value, power, influence, and things like that, and you can get not only in their good graces, but you can help them, benefit them, and become of, I guess, importance to what they're trying to do, then you also become a valuable chess piece on the board. Now, a lot of people will try to misconstrue this with trying to, I guess, appease others and, just be likable. But this is why I pointed out in the very beginning is that you need to be valuable. So if you're a musician and you want to be extremely good on your instrument, well, there's a lot of people good at their instrument, but how many musicians show up on time? How many musicians know how to sight read and actually practice their instrument to be ready for the show? How many musicians are carving out time to even improve the ensemble with other musicians within the ensemble instead of just focusing on themselves, becoming of value to others? So when you start to think of yourself as kind of like a seed in a garden instead of a petal on a flower, then things kind of, function a little better for you as a musician. But all in all, that's all I have for you this evening. Make sure you tune in with me the next time. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. Also check the links in the description as well as the comments below. And I want to know what you think. If you're getting into the music industry as a newbie, as a brand new person, I want to know, what are your plans to basically get what you want out of the music industry? What is it you want from us? What did you plan on receiving from your efforts? And then also I want you to think of, what do you plan on giving us? Is it only music? Is it yourself? Is it your story? Is it helping others? Is it value? So let me know. And you veteran musicians, let's join the conversation and get these newbies into the fold, and let's get to work. So I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.